Hello everyone and welcome back to another average review. In the last review, I looked at the Mcfarlane Deluxe Theatrical Edition Mr. Terrific from the Superman 2025 movie. Well, I'm continuing that trend of reviewing Deluxe Theatrical Edition figures with Lex Luthor and, I guess, the baby kaiju from the same movie. Now, the packaging style is nearly identical, Deluxe Theatrical Edition text here, Superman and DC Multiverse logos here, and the name of the figure, which is, of course, Lex Luthor and not Mr. Terrific, down at the bottom. On the side, we get this cool graphic of Superman with, the Superman text going through him. And on the back, we have, once again, this really weird promotional artwork of Lex Luthor and the baby kaiju. But that's besides the point, because what we're looking for is what's in the box. So let's get this Lex Luthor out of there. Alright, getting this Lex Luthor out of the box, and to my knowledge, this guy is a 100% new sculpt. Now, I may be wrong since I don't own many, suited DC Multiverse figures like this Lex Luthor, but yeah, to my knowledge, he's completely new, and this is a pretty good-looking suited body. It's well proportioned, all the details necessary are there. He's got, his vest, his tie, he's got the shirt pockets. The pants are pretty well done, too. Not much on the back, but, That's kind of how most suits like this are. And, it's pretty dang nice looking. The entire figure, in terms of the suit, is mostly a very dark purple, which I think is a bit odd since I don't think Lex Luthor's suit was purple in the movie. I think it was definitely black. So that's a very, very odd choice. I don't hate it, it doesn't look bad, but it's just kind of weird that he's wearing a completely different colored suit. And again, I might just be wrong and the lighting made it look black for some reason. Who knows? But, taking a look at something besides the suit, the head sculpt is very well done. That's a pretty good likeness to Nicholas Hoult, the actor who played Lex Luthor. I'd say along with the David Corenswet Superman, these guys are some of the best likenesses that Mcfarlane has done, which, is good, since they're definitely the two most important characters in the movie. So, basically, my overall thoughts are, the suited body is very nice despite its weird color choice, and I do hope it gets used for future figures, especially one that's a lot cheaper than this one, spoilers, so that it can be used for easy customs. And also, the head sculpt is very, very well done. So, moving on to the articulation, Lex Luthor's of course got the standard Mcfarlane dumbbell joint in the neck, which lets him look up this far, look down this far, tilt his head side to side, and of course, spin his head all the way around. Now, he doesn't have any rotator cuffs, but his shoulders still do wobble a little in there. His shoulders can also, of course, spin all the way around and hinge up around 90 degrees. It might be the slightest bit more, but it's around that area. He's, of course, got the Mcfarlane bicep swivel and double jointed elbows with a pretty good bend. He's, of course, got the Mcfarlane style wrists that can spin around and hinge in pretty much any direction, although all that movement is limited by his, sleeve cuffs, so you're not getting much there. He's, of course, got the standard Mcfarlane ball joint in the waist, but no diaphragm joint since his suit jacket is all one piece. Now, the ball joint in the waist does get him the slightest bit of hunch forward. He gets a bit of arch back. Not much tilt side to side, really, but he does spin all the way around very easily. Now, his hips are a lot more impressive than his torso articulation, because they can kick way above 90 degrees, which is nice to see. They also get a pretty nice split. Not really much at all in the terms of hip rotation, but he's got double jointed knees with a pretty alright bend, and of course, The McFarlane-style ankles that can hinge forward and back, although not much. Pivot side to side, although once again not much. And spin around, but once again, that's limited by the edges of his pants. But what isn't limited is, of course, the standard McFarlane toe articulation. So overall, Lex Luthor's articulation is pretty alright for a, standard suited body like this. The hand and foot articulation does suffer from, the cuffs of his shirt and pants. But for just being a ball-jointed waist, I will say, the torso articulation is pretty good. Although, as usual, I would kinda like improvement, but I mean, Lex Luthor ain't the most flexible character, so I guess it can sorta be excused. Moving on to the figure comparisons, and we of course have to start out with the standard male and female comparisons, the Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. But hey, moving on to DC comparisons, and we of course have to bring out this Lex Luthor's arch nemesis, Superman, of course, played by David Corenswet. I absolutely loved their rivalry in the movie, so I'm glad that these figures do look really good together. But I mean, if we're bringing out Superman, we gotta bring out Luthor's superpowered stooge, Ultraman, also by McFarlane. Here's hoping they make a Wave 2 of Superman movie figures that actually includes the Engineer. For some other heroes in the movie, though, we have Metamorpho and Mr. Terrific. Unfortunately, McFarlane has not made the live-action versions of Hawkgirl or Guy Gardner, so instead I'm going to substitute Hawkgirl with, well, the deluxe comic version of Hawkgirl. But Hawkgirl does lead us very nicely into some comic figures of Superman and, well, his enemies. Starting off, though, we have the repaint of Action Comics 1000 from the Atomic Skull 2-pack, who is surprisingly shorter than Lex Luthor, which feels a bit weird. For something a bit more bulky, though, and here's the similarly colored Hush Superman. But if we're bringing out comic versions of Superman by McFarlane, we of course gotta bring out my personal favorite, the Collector Edition Strange Lives Superman. For some alternate looks, though, we have the Solar Suit by DC Essentials. Just like the Atomic Skull 2-pack version of Supes, though, this guy is the slightest bit shorter than Lex. For something a bit more classic, though, we have the Fleischer Studios Superman by McFarlane. For a comic version of the most famous live-action Superman, though, we have the McFarlane Page Punchers Superman 78. Although, speaking of Page Punchers, I should actually bring out this kit bash of the Page Punchers 90s Superboy with the Three Jokers Red Hood jacket, since, well, in the comics, Connor Kent Superboy was later on in his existence revealed to be a clone of both Lex Luthor and Superman. Yeah, Lex Luthor and Superman technically have a biological child, which is certainly something. But hey, we can't just bring out Superman and his allies, we also gotta bring out some of his villains. Of course, we gotta start out with General Zod, since he was the main villain of the previous Superman solo movie. Since we brought out the version of Superman from that 2-pack, it only makes sense to bring out Atomic Skull, too. For a villain who has attempted and failed to make it into a live-action Superman sequel many times, and will hopefully actually be the villain of the Superman sequel Man of Tomorrow, we have the McFarlane Page Punchers Brainiac. Please let the curse of Superman sequels with Brainiac in them getting cancelled, end with Man of Tomorrow, if he's actually in the movie. But for some bigger villains in a quite literal sense, we have the Mattel DC Multiverse New 52 Doomsday. But for the biggest bad of them all, we have the Mcfarlane DC Classic Darkseid. But for the most important Superman villain of them all, we have the comic book version of Lex Luthor from DC Rebirth in his power armor. Now, while this figure's here, I actually wanted to try a head swap to get a version of Lex Luthor without him, well, looking off to the side in his power armor. And yeah, this is pretty much perfect. Now, I did have to use the neck peg from the actual Rebirth Lex Luthor instead of the one from the suited Lex Luthor, since the one with the suited Luthor would make the head sit way too high on the neck. But yeah, this looks pretty good. Although I should mention the skin tones on the neck and the head don't exactly match in person, but yeah, still, this looks amazing. And since Lex Luthor's definitely going to be wearing his power suit from the comics in the movie Man of Tomorrow, this is a pretty neat look into what that might look like. But as is tradition, here's the DC Multiverse Deluxe Theatrical Edition Lex Luthor with the Marvel Legends hit Monkey and Goliath. So I was wondering if I could hire you to type a bunch of slanderous messages to Superman in my pocket dimension. Well, now that we're done with the figure comparisons and the head swaps, it's time to talk about the fun part, the accessories that this Lex Luthor comes with. In terms of hands, he comes preloaded with this open gestury hand, and he also comes preloaded with an accessory holding trigger hand, which would be pretty useful for recreating that one scene, which I'm still kind of processing after a couple months. I should mention, this figure doesn't come with any gun or revolver. But he also comes with a matching trigger finger for his left hand and a fist for his right hand. I would have liked if they included another open gestury hand and another fist too, but I guess you can't win them all sometimes. But in my eyes, the real exciting part about this figure is that he comes with a bunch of alternate expressions that you can display him with. Now, the deluxe Superman and Mr. Terrific came with swappable faceplates, but due to, Lex being bald and not having a good place where, seam lines wouldn't be super noticeable, he instead comes with the more traditional alternate heads. Now, the one he comes prepackaged with is a fairly normal stoic head. There's also this one, which seems very, very similar, although I do think he's a bit more angry with this head sculpt, like his brows are a bit more furrowed, he's frowning a little more. But my favorite alternate head is easily this smirking one, which, this just perfectly captures Luthor's smugness and confidence that he could easily outsmart Superman and defeat him. Now, hey, the box mentioned it, and this feels like the most appropriate time to bring it out. And yeah, Lex Luthor comes with a little miniature figurine of the baby kaiju from the movie. It's sculpted and painted very well. It doesn't have articulation despite having, seam lines at the shoulders and the head, but it looks nice at the very least. I don't know, I just don't care very much for this accessory. I feel like instead, this Lex Luthor should have come with more alternate hands, and this baby kaiju should have just come with the kaiju mega fig they released. But hey, it's more things in the box, so I guess there's not much to complain about. And just like every other DC Multiverse figure, this Lex Luthor comes with a figure stand and a trading card. The trading card, of course, has silver foil that says Deluxe Theatrical Edition. And on the back, there's a little bio for Lex Luthor. So, pause here if you want to read it. Now, the question is, how much does this Lex Luthor cost? Well, he's a deluxe theatrical edition, so if you're trying to find him in stores, he'll run you about $35. Now, the question is this Lex Luthor worth it? Well, just like Mr. Terrific from the last review, I'm a fair bit conflicted. I think, like the Mr. Terrific, this figure has a fantastic all-new sculpt with great articulation. I like how the head sculpts look, and the alternate hands are, well, I mean, they're kind of the bare minimum. I don't really care much for the baby kaiju, but I mean, this Lex Luthor comes with the same amount of alternate hands and expressions, and also an extra little figurine, so I can't complain too much. But still, I would have rather this Lex Luthor had more alternate hands instead of the baby kaiju. Still, I feel like this Lex Luthor is fairly worth the price. It's a very basic figure for the most part, since it's mostly just a guy in a suit. But I mean, that's what Lex Luthor is at the end of the day. Still, I wish that he came with more alternate hands, since, I mean, looking at a figure like the Silver Age Batman with Ace the Bat Hound, that figure came with a bigger, mini figurine with Ace the Bat Hound, an extra pair of alternate hands, and a wired cape. Although granted, that figure didn't come with any alternate expressions or heads. But, yeah, still, I wish this Lex Luthor came with more alternate hands. Although, for anyone that owns that figure, I actually think the Batman v Superman Alfred alternate hands work very, very well with this Lex Luthor. Granted, the skin tones do not match, but I feel like they're close enough to where you can sort of fudge it in your display if you want, more dynamic hands like that Alfred does. So, overall, what are my thoughts on this deluxe theatrical edition Lex Luthor? Well, overall, I'm pretty dang satisfied. The new suited body is very, very nice. It's also very well articulated, especially for, a Mcfarlane figure that doesn't even have a diaphragm joint, just a ball-jointed waist. He works really well with, pretty much every Superman. Even in, a comic display, you can definitely fit this guy in, since, he just looks like regular Lex Luthor. Granted, he's a bit taller than some older Superman figures by Mcfarlane, like Action Comics 1000. But you can say that about a lot of Mcfarlane figures. That Action Comics 1000 Superman is a bit puny compared to modern ones. There's also the fact that he has great head swap potential with that DC Rebirth armored Lex Luthor for both a comic armored Lex Luthor without the annoying side-eye, and also for the Superman Man of Tomorrow look. Well, at least until a figure of that Lex Luthor comes out. But still, there's some problems with this guy. The alternate heads are great, but the alternate hands are kinda lackluster. He doesn't even have a pair of fists or a pair of gestury hands. Just one of either. And I think he definitely should have come with more. At the very least, maybe an extra pointing hand, so that you can maybe recreate that one scene where he's screaming 1A in his office so that, Ultraman beats the crap out of Superman. Also, a more angry yelling head sculpt, too, would have been pretty good with recreating that scene. Oh yeah, there's also the baby kaiju figurine, which I don't really care for since I'm not going to be getting the regular full-size kaiju. So yeah, I'd say this Lex Luthor is really good, but it has a couple problems that hold it back. Granted, if you have the Batman v Superman Alfred or any other figure with hands that, match this Lex Luthor, then you can sort of negate one of those problems, but that doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist for people that haven't bought an entire extra figure just to have more hands for this Lex Luthor. So overall, I'm going to give the Mcfarlane DC Multiverse Deluxe Theatrical Edition Lex Luthor an 8 out of 10. He's a really good figure, don't get me wrong, and I don't regret getting this guy in the slightest, but I still feel that he could have been better. So hey, for those that are still here, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day, 'cause you deserve it. Bye-bye!